Hey everyone, and welcome back to New Jersey Living. My name is Corey Jones. I'm a licensed real estate agent in New Jersey, and I've helped hundreds of people just like you both buy and sell real estate here in the Garden State. So we are going to dive in today on the topic of what's really happening in the New Jersey spring market. So whether you're buying, selling, or just keeping tabs on investment, what you really need are real numbers and not just headlines. So today we are going to dive into some numbers of what is unfolding in this 2025 spring market. Based on some of my previous episodes, we were talking about trends coming out of the winter season, trying to project where we're going to land for the spring, and now we have a few updates to share. So let's start with the numbers. Right now in New Jersey, when we're talking year over year, we're talking about a 8.2% increase in the median home value. So again, we're talking value, we're not talking even sales prices right now, just value. So what that tells us is the general trend of appreciation in the New Jersey market continues to trend upwards in a pretty consistent manner. Is it what it was from our days of COVID when we were looking at 18%? No, which is something that truly is not sustainable, but we are now at a point of 8.2, which is certainly healthy. But given an idea that even with some of the market fluctuations, New Jersey is certainly one of those markets that is insulated from what we hear about when we talk about price drops and crashes. But we're going to revisit that topic as we look a little closer at the numbers very shortly. So stick around for that. So we're going to start with the statewide market, and we're going to look at two areas specifically, both price trends and what the current inventory is looking like year over year. So price trend, I already mentioned, up 8.2%. Median home value right now for New Jersey, $539,757. All right, so when we're talking about February, we're right now at the end of April, so we can most conveniently track back to both March and February, but we're going to use February in this case. So we're talking about February sales. Sales down 3.4% compared to February of 2024. We're talking single family homes specifically when we look at the 3.6% number. So 3.4 is including everything, 3.6 specifically single family. So when you see downward trends, you're thinking about market correction, or you tend to be tempted to think about market correction. Is that meaning that things are crashing? Do we see prices coming down? There's no easy answer to say straight, flat, yes, no to every single one of those questions, because are we seeing fewer sales? The answer is yes. Does that reflect a market retraction? The answer is no. We are seeing a consistent rise in prices, both list prices and sales prices. What we're seeing fewer of are actual units that are going to the market for sale, right? So we have fewer sales taking place. We have inventory, yes, but that inventory is still very, very limited. So in a year to year, there's fewer sales that are taking place. And this is statewide again. This doesn't apply to every single market. There are markets, I know some of you all who are watching right now who are saying to yourself, it does not look like that where I am. And I 100% can concur with that for a lot of different markets in New Jersey. But statewide, overall units, number of units sold took a drop. But are prices dropping? Answer is no in general, all right? But are we seeing more price reductions? Are we seeing properties in many markets, but in general, on the market for a longer period of time? Yes, right? So we're saying yes, more price drops. Yes, more properties on the market for a longer period of time. But when we talk about list price compared to sales price, is that number still above list price? The answer is yes. Properties still on average are selling comfortably above list price. And we're going to take a look at some of those data points very shortly. All right, now let's take a quick look at inventory. With inventory for the month of March this year is showing that there are a little over 13,000 active listings, which is close to 15% above the year over year when we look at March of last year, 2024. The number of new listings for March shows a roughly 11% increase over February, and that's this year. So just this past March, we've seen about a 10% increase in inventory, which is expected. As we approach the spring season, we tend to see more homes come active for that most active season of the year, which is roughly April through June. And then we have list price sales price ratio. So the state average, again, this is specific to state. We're going to see a couple specific markets in just a minute, but the state average is 101.1% list price sales price ratio, which means on average, homes are selling just a little above the list price. Now that definitely depends, because some markets right now you need to be prepared for about 15 to 20%. That's the more extreme, highest demand markets, right? So that 15 to 20% is actually quite conservative in those cases, all right? So we have markets still right now in New Jersey that are 20 to 30% above ask. So this is reflective of, again, state average, not everything altogether. The overall average of homes statewide that sell above list is almost at 50%, 48.2. But again, you can see what the average is. The average is 1% above. So now we're going to take a look at a couple specific markets that are markets that tend to have routine activity. Only one of them is the typical bellwether that I often use. So if you've been watching any of my episodes in the past, you probably have noticed me identify a few markets as the bellwether markets because they tend to have a lot of activity. They are relatively affordable, middle of the road buyers see a lot of activity there. They're relatively close proximity to the city, and they have school systems where people are not going to have reservations about sending their children to public schools. So those districts we're talking about, or those locations, are Union, New Jersey, that's Union Township and Union County. That is Bloomfield and Essex County, that's neighboring to Montclair and to Nutley. And on the southern end, East Orange, Newark, and Glen Ridge, right? So kind of borders north and south, respectively. And we often, for a Bergen County location that has really solid demand and has some affordable options, would be Teaneck. We're not going to use any of those in this case. First one I'm going to flash up is Bayonne. So we're going to take a look at this snapshot of Bayonne, and what we're going to take a look at are specifically what type of sales price, right? So sales price is very significant. List price is one thing, but where did the property actually sell? So when we look at the far left number, 710K, and that is up 22%, and that's straight year to year. This is from where we are right now, April 2025, from April 2024. We're talking about a 22% increase. This number, as you see in the heading, I included both single and multi-families for Bayonne because there's a pretty robust market of multi and single families in that market. Then we take a look at, well, I guess it's relevant to look at list price. List price was, the median was $775, which was a 3% hike. So the list price is slightly above in terms of the median, but you can see sales prices consistently going higher. And then look at the sales price list price ratio. So this, again, this gives an average. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily show how we see that sales prices have gone up generally. We know that list prices have gone up, but Bayonne is not necessarily that market where you have to be excessively over list price to be able to secure a deal. All right, so other metrics that you see that are up here: number of properties sold, 175, which is an 84% increase overall. And properties for sale. But really it's those left three that we're focusing in most for these particular markets we're going to take a glance at before we take a deep dive in the third one. Second market is going to be Edison in Middlesex. Edison is a higher demand market. It is in close proximity to Metro Park train station, which is in Island, New Jersey, a part of Woodbridge. And at that train station, it can get you into Manhattan in 37 minutes. All right, so this is definitely a high demand location, very much high performing school district, specifically J.P. Stevens, which is in North Edison, which is one of the highest performing public high schools in the state. So we see here, this is straight single family. Edison does have a healthy mix of single family condos and townhomes, but I wanted to isolate single families for this particular metric. We see Average sales prices, they're up 10% year over year. List price, very similar to Bayonne, up 3%. And you can see that it's necessary to be a bit more aggressive in the Edison market. All right, so 103.9, so that's 4%. 4% above asking price was your average for that given market. All right, so again, giving you some details on numbers, and all of this is reflecting there is still a very healthy, appetite for property in these markets. And now we're going to take a deeper dive into the market, which I consider to be one of the bargain opportunities in the real estate market. And if you've watched my recent episode on where to live and where you may want to avoid in New Jersey, this is one of my C level, like kind of that middle of the road location in terms of real estate market, Plainfield, New Jersey. So in Plainfield, you see average sales price, $525, very affordable. Again, by Jersey standards, that's a very affordable price point. You can see that the median list price has taken a jump in Plainfield, all right, 16%. But when we look at list price sales price ratio, 3.5, about 3.5%, 3.4, but I'm just rounding it to 3.5 above list price to be able to get into a property in that market. So with that said, I want to flash up our current activity for the month of April and let's see what that looks like in real time. How does that look like right now in April of 2025? So we take a look at Plainfield here, and we can see that there have been 17 sales in Plainfield. Of those 17, only 3 of them selling below list price. So in referencing the 17 that we see have sold in Plainfield, we're going to reference one that's somewhat in the middle. We're going to select property number 11, 1227 Putnam. What's attracting my line of sight to that one is the bathroom count, which I'll get into in just a few seconds. And this one it sold a bit on the higher side. There was a bit of an anomaly. There's one that stands out that sold 16% above asking price. Putnam was on the higher end. Generally, we take out that 16, Putnam would have been towards the higher end, although there's an 11 and a 9 as well. So let's take a look at Putnam just to kind of get an idea of what those market numbers look like in a real example. With 1227 Putnam, neighborhood-wise, we're just going to flash through some of my road footage from previous episodes that I have recorded in Plainfield. This is and just outside of really Sleepy Hollow's core section. There are some of the outer rims, if you will, of Sleepy Hollow. Putnam kind of fits into that category, still within the community, but it's more on that outer edge of it. So we look at 5 bedrooms. Pay attention to that count. 5 bedroom, 3.5 bath is still just under 2,000 square feet. So these you wouldn't expect to have a lot of very large bedrooms, for example, in that case. And we see that this is a property that, as we mentioned before, sold 5% above list price. So let's take a look at some of the photos that we have here and get to appreciate the aesthetics of this particular property. So outside had a very nice curb appeal, and for the interior, these are certainly refinished hardwood floors. I can tell by the size of the planks. You're not going to find laminates with those thinner plank widths, right? But this has been a property that certainly has been upgraded as well. When you look at the mantle around the fireplace, for example, and the recessed lighting. From some of my own sales in the neighborhood, I can definitely recognize this general floor plan. We have a little bit of a step up to get to the stairwell itself, and the separate dining room with upgraded lighting, baseboard heating. So we know right now that this is not a forced hot air situation. I don't see right now vents in the ceiling or on the wall, so there does not appear to be central air. Kitchen is certainly an upgrade. You see higher end appliances with the Viking refrigerator, Viking stove. Yeah, very, very recently done kitchen, laundry room, a basement that is partial finished. There's some sheetrock walls, nothing finished on the floor. That's a basement half bath. And we see an enclosed porch, but it's important to note that there is heating there, right? So that makes it year round in terms of the season. And bedroom. So the bedrooms, you can see again, nothing extremely large in size. Another bathroom that has been upgraded at some point, but not recent upgrade, doesn't reflect a recent upgrade. And the other bedrooms, again, you can see and pretty much imagine they're probably moderate sized bedrooms. Another bath that probably was on the third level with a driveway, and it appears to be a detached garage in the back. And let's see if we can get a photo. There we go. Detached garage in the back. I see 2 garage bay doors and a patio there where they have a hot tub, another patio section towards the far end of the backyard. All right, so a property that, yes, has had some upgrades, but what we call this or consider this to be something that would be reflective of a full, complete renovation as recent, the answer would be no. But again, these prices for what you're getting, if this was Bloomfield, and I'm not even gonna go to the higher end markets like Glen Ridge, South Orange, Montclair, but if this was a Bloomfield, for example, different kind of price point. All right. Likewise, if we were somewhere neighboring to Bloomfield, like a Nutley, for example, different kind of price point. Just next door, Scotch Plains Fanwood, most certainly different kind of price point. So this is something that reflects, definitely that bargain. But for spring market, we can see that there is still healthy activity in your kind of middle of the road markets like a Plainfield. And just revisiting, if you haven't seen, I have 2 Plainfield episodes. I'm going to flash up the 2 thumbnails from my 2 episodes on Plainfield. Use that to get some insights on the neighborhoods, the general aesthetics, little insights on the community, and get to know the big 3. So the big 3 are those 3 factors that drive demand here in New Jersey. Plainfield has 2 of those 3. So those 3 are proximity to New York City. And by that, I mean about an hour drive to reach Midtown Manhattan. A local train station, Plainfield has 2, and school ratings. And school ratings, Plainfield does not score very high at all when it comes to the niche.com school ratings. So this is something that, again, is going to be a reason why some people decide not to consider that as an option, particularly if you have school-age children. But for many others, it's going to give you a great, great bargain for an option to have a historic home, to be tree-lined streets, to be in some very, very lovely neighborhoods, right? So that's something that is going to be your profile for a location like Plainfield. So what does all of this mean for you in this spring season? We're going to start for sellers. We're going to throw in a few tips for sellers, a few tips for buyers as well. For sellers, it's important to note we're in a marketplace right now where we don't see a lot of hyper aggressive above ask offers where they're market specific now, but they're not 15, 20, 30% above ask. So what that means for you as a seller, if you're in a very average and marginal kind of position, you don't want to do the often used COVID strategy. Let's just price it competitive and let the market take it to where it's going to go. You don't want to overprice because it's going to sit and it's going to exclude a lot of buyers, right? It's going to turn off a lot of buyers from even thinking they have a chance at your house. But you want to be relatively close. If you think your price point, your sell point is at a certain place, is a good idea to be relatively close to it. Some markets are exceptions though. So again, talk to a local realtor, because in where we are, where my office is in Essex County, there are some markets that consistently perform well above list price. So it is specific to market, but in general, be relatively close to that, what you expect to be your sell price, to see it land somewhere close to that neighborhood. When it comes to condition, it is worthwhile of knowing, and I mean knowing professionally. Some of you already maintain your homes pretty regularly with systems check when it comes to your heating system, definitely with your heating system. If you don't have your home maintenance annually by a certified licensed technician for heating, cooling, it's a good idea to do that in general, but definitely do that before you go to market. Having an idea of what's the condition of your electric panel. Has anyone even looked behind your electric panel for some years to be able to identify, are there any items that would be of concern in an inspection? Now, these are things that may just cost a few $100s, but to be able to get some things touched up in advance would save headaches down the road, because when a buyer comes back and they ask for a concession for repairs, it can easily exceed that amount that you would have had to pay just by simply having a few things maintenance. Some other things are, again, simple: gutter cleaning, for example, some cleanup around the yard in terms of landscaping. All right, just having some things, ensuring that your downspouts on your gutters, that they're leaders that take water away from the foundation. Some very relatively small cleanups that can be done that can save stress, aggravation, negotiation in the road, down the road to come, once that buyer has their inspection. And finally, presentation. Presentation 100% matters. Your digital footprint online means a lot. Most buyers are shopping online. They are consuming all the information about properties for sale online. So your agent should, like myself, have one, an online footprint, two, have professional quality photography, video, and 3D footage, 3D tour capability to be available online for someone to be able to preview your property. So these are some hints for the sellers. Let's get a few for the buyers. For buyers, number one, I have mentioned this and stressed this. I do it all the time with my own clients. I've done it in many episodes here on this channel. You just don't want to be pre-qualified. And yes, it's good to have a pre-approval. It's even better to have a fully underwritten pre-approval. That fully underwritten means your financial profile has been completely vetted in the underwriting process in advance, and you can share that information with the seller and their agents when you present your offer. What that means to them is greater security, that there's not going to be a discovery of, oh, well, we see that there's this debt here, or we actually have to take care of a few things over here, or this actually does not apply for this given situation. Any number of things can come up financially that can make a very difficult transition, right, from getting to under contract to the closing table. All right. So that pre-underwriting process gets all of that heavy lifting out of the way. The final pieces are more relative to the property itself, such as the property taxes, the exact quote or estimate for homeowners insurance. These are some of the things that are going to come into play that they have to account for once you get an accepted offer, but pre-underwritten goes a long way. Second for buyers is flexibility with location, being willing to expand your radius, right? So if you just are willing to, if you're fixated on one neighborhood, and what I find by experience, most instances where someone is fixated on one neighborhood is because there's such high demand for obvious reasons for that neighborhood, and that does come with a premium. Being able to widen that lens, widen that scope a little bit. It may not be even in town, but a town that offers a lot of the similar features or benefits as that town that you're looking in. Or if you want to stay in that town, just be willing to open up a bit of a wider radius to stay within that town. The location parameters does give you benefit if you can add more options. And the third for buyers, be ready to act quickly. And act quickly does not mean panic buy. Just don't throw yourself into a situation where, one, you have to, as I've mentioned before, convince yourself to buy a property. You don't want to be in that situation. If something that you really like, but you're like, should I really move forward and put an offer in? That's more often of the case for my buyers who have not made an offer yet. Those who have made an offer once or twice, they get into a flow of understanding the process, and they know, okay, you know what? If I like this, I'm gonna put an offer in. If I like that, I'm gonna put an offer in. All right, because that offer is very much just that first step. You don't have a deal until you're out of attorney review and under contract. All right, so if you like that property, put an offer on that property. All right. So the terms are going to, as I tell my clients, the strength of the terms depends on how strongly you feel about that property. If you want to take a home run swing at it, your agent will guide you on what a home run swing looks like for that given property. If it's something that you really like, but you don't love, you really are comfortable, I can see myself here for some time, but I don't need to go all out for it, then again, your agent will help you to structure an offer that reflects that type of sentiment for that property. You see what I mean? So you want to consider, all right, I have to take action if I'm going to be in the mix. I have to be in it to win it. So let me put an offer on, but don't take a lot of time, particularly if you're looking in a high demand area or you're looking at a property that the demand is kind of average, maybe a little bit above average, but this property is really together. It is really nice. Well, guess what? Other people are seeing that property and saying the same thing. Offers are coming in. Put the offer in. If you're not thrilled about location, but you really are okay with it, but you really love that house, then decide how you want to structure offer price and terms that reflect that value that you place on that property. And before we get into the final factor that's impacting the spring of 2025, I'm going to throw out a few resources for you buyers that are out there. We have a home buyer's guide that walks you through the process. Again, if you need representation, if you need guidance, just need some insights, I am available to provide that at any time. So it's a QR code for you and a QR code for those that are relocating to New Jersey from some other areas, just to get more familiar with the Garden State. For sellers, have two QR codes for you. First one is for a complimentary CMA. Know your value, even if you're not looking to sell this year, next year, 5 years, a decade from now. Know your value. You should be getting an updated valuation on your property from a realtor at least once every year. All right. So, and if you have a strong enough rapport with that realtor, they know that you're not looking to sell, but you're just looking to stay updated, and they can fill you in on what's happening in the neighborhood, what some of these other trends are, right? Just stay updated. I provide that complimentary, no charge, of course. And then there is for those who are cash curious, you'd like to know if an investor offered me something right now that was cash and closed in 2 or 3 weeks, what would that look like? Do I want to save convenience of having to go through this whole process of getting my home ready and doing all the things just to be just right, if you will? And I don't want to go through all of that. Or like in many cases, you've inherited a property or you have someone in the family who is moving on from it and it just needs to be a quick and convenient sale. Investor offers are something to be considered in those circumstances. So I have a QR code for those who are interested in that as well. So reach out. I'd be happy to assist you in whatever process that you are considering. So the final point that's definitely impacting the market right now, and it impacts every market, that's interest rates. If you're looking at rates should not be something that makes the determination as to whether you buy or not. If you're on the sell side, it's probably going to factor in a little bit more because some of you all right now are sitting on a 2%, 2.5%, 3% mortgage, right? And it takes a lot for you to move off of that. Okay, so definitely understand. But on the buy side, whether the rates are at 6.5, if they're at 7, if they're even towards 7.5, the real question is how much more are you going to pay if you delay purchasing for another year, another 2 years, and so on? Because as you've seen, what we've demonstrated already, state average of appreciation is 8%. That's the state. If you focus only on northern and even a good portion of central Jersey, we're talking 10 to 14 for a lot of those locations, year to year. Okay, so what you could have purchased, and I'm going to use 500 for example, what you could have purchased for 500 last year, you would have to pay 550 this year. Think about that, right? And an interest rate of 0.5% will not make up that difference at all. So it's less of a issue than what it should be psychologically in the minds of a lot of buyers, but it nonetheless is something that people pay attention to. So if you're really trying to get an idea of what's impacting interest rates, your 10-year treasury bill is what you really want to focus on more than anything else, right? That 10-year treasury does exactly dictate or drive where mortgage rates are going to go both up and down. Right now, end of April 2025, the rates are comfortably in a mid to higher 6 range, right? So today, just working with a new client today, and I operate on the mortgage side as well. So I have direct insights on that process and current rates, but it can be a 6 3/4. 6 1/4 is certainly even attainable right now in this market. All right. So I'm using mid 6 as a general. So mid 6 is what we're looking at. The key for really being prepared is, of course, getting the pre-underwritten, pre-approval. And once you know you are secured and acquiring that property, getting that lock-in done to ensure that you're not going to climb a quarter point by the time you reach closing. Unfortunately, I had a situation like that for a client that had a rate, and that rate just took a jump, pretty significant jump by the time we were at closing. I mean, that wasn't, again, financed through me, but that was a situation where it was not a good place to be when your interest rate takes a pretty noticeable climb by the time you get to closing. So ultimately, don't let rates be the deciding factor, and certainly have in your mind buying earlier is certainly better than buying later. I do have scenarios where, again, going back to the COVID days, where many were not inclined to get into the bidding wars and not inclined to aggressively pursue some properties that didn't really give everything, gave some things, but not everything that they wanted. And again, you're talking about over that time frame, a property, and I'm saying a lower price point, such as a $375, for example, or just say a $400,000 purchase during that time frame, where that same property now, if it were on the market, would have a value of $525 or $540. All right, just over a 3-year period. That gives you an idea, of what purchase power looks like. It shrinks the longer you wait. Okay, so the interest rate should not be that determining factor of, hey, rates are at 7 now, let me not, pursue this until it shrinks back down again. The good thing is that the rates are not volatile in terms of jumping up to high 7s and then coming back down, and like they're relatively steady as we've been experiencing between the mid 6s up to low 7s. So all in all, the New Jersey real estate market, it remains resilient. We are not a place in the country where we are subject to a lot of economic downturns and a lot of transient activity where people who are leaving and coming. It happens here all the time. And we're outside of one of the most significant international cities in the world. So there are always people coming in. Yes, there are people who are moving out, but always a stream of people who are moving into the market. So if you are looking to make a move of some kind, whether it be buy or sell within the next few months or within the next year, by all means, reach out. And if you want to get specific data on your neighborhood or the county that you're in, or where you're looking to live in that county, reach out. I'll be glad to send a report with updated market data for that particular area that you're looking in or that you're looking to sell in, whatever your need may be. And if you found this video helpful, please do click like, subscribe, and the notification bell. Drop some comments in here. We've been getting some great feedback, insights. It's always wonderful to have an ongoing discussion right here in the community. Even if you disagree with some of the content that I'm throwing out there, it's an open forum, because I'm not one who's going to say everything I say is 100% gospel, but I'm telling you from what I experience in the market, from my professional experience day to day. And as I always say, stay safe and stay tuned to New Jersey Living.